back to my show, Growth Factor, or if you're new here, I'm Amalia, and I want to share today the reason that I started my show and also ask you if you're open to interviewing or at least commenting below so we can all learn from you, because that's the whole point of my show, is that we're learning and growing together and sharing our journey. So the reason I started my show was I was having anxiety and doom feelings, and I knew that I didn't want to go on medication. I tried that in the past. I thought there's got to be a way to resolve this. I can't just be a defective human being. So I know a lot of you right now are struggling. It might be your eyesight or hair loss. It could be your gut, such as Crohn's, IBS, IBD. It could be your joints, you're having arthritis issues, or your skin, eczema and psoriasis, or it could be just general fatigue. So that's what I was struggling with from time to time. I was so tired, I'd have to call my parents and say, please pick me up. I can't drive. I'm about to fall asleep. And I have 4 little babies in the car. Now my kids are ages 15 through 21. But that was my first hint. My second hint was volunteering for the Red Cross, giving my blood. You know, when you volunteer for the Red Cross, you can save up to 3 lives. So that really was important to me. And often they would reject me because I was low in iron, because they prick your finger and check your iron and I'd be too low. They want you to be, I think, a little over 12 and I'd be 10 or 11. So I would just not make it. And I have to remember to eat meat, which of course, most of us, I think, are training in the 80s and 90s. We feel so guilty that meat is going to cause colon cancer, meat is going to cause heart disease. And it turns out everything we learned in the 80s and 90s seems to be opposite world. It seems the opposite is true. So when I went to university, I became a nutritionist, although they did not award me the minor because they only did majors, not minors. So later in life, I had to do nutrition on my own. I also am a hypnotherapist, so nutritionist and hypnotherapist taught me now by reading books, by learning from people like you and doctors and patients, that it seems that plant-based and vegan really doesn't work for most of us. It starts to cause a breakdown in our brain. So for me, it was anxiety, possibly call it depression. For other people, it's bipolar. It could be all kinds of mental health issues, including multiple sclerosis. There's doctors that talk about helping reverse multiple sclerosis, or at least drastically reduce it, using not a plant-based diet, but a meat-based diet. And now, you know, we learned cholesterol was the enemy. Now we learn that, no, we need cholesterol for the sex hormones to convert vitamin K1 to K2, and we need it for our mental health foods. And only animals have cholesterol. So if you eat plant-based, great, then you're not going to be ingesting cholesterol, but you really need that cholesterol. And I realized what was missing from plant-based foods is you really can't get the heme iron, you can't get vitamin B12, creatine, carnosine, vitamin D3, DHA, taurine, and many, many more essential amino acids. I think you know there's 20 amino acids, 9 of them you have to get from foods, and one I just mentioned is really important for mental health. So people who are plant-based, I always tell my children and plant-based friends, if your mental health is fine, if your gut is fine, your skin, your joints are fine, then continue to be plant-based. However, if your teeth are struggling, if you're losing your hair, if you feel anxiety, if you have a little pooch belly, if you're not doing well in the bathroom, then perhaps you have to include meat in your diet. I know that's really hard for some people, but what I'm starting to learn is if you don't want to be cruel to animals and you don't want to sacrifice animals, that's fine. So continue as you are. However, you're going to be most likely sacrificing your own health and your family's health. So you have to make a choice. Do you want to sacrifice the animals, or do you want to sacrifice your own health or the health of your family? So if your mental health is fine, your gut and skin are fine, teeth and eyesight are just great, and your joints are great, then you're doing great. You don't need to listen to all of us. But if you want to continue watching my show and learning and being on a journey like me, I can tell you from my experience, my anxiety, I call it anxiety, it was probably depression, melted away. And when you see videos like mine, go into the comments and you'll see people saying, I got off this and that medication. Of course, you know, listen to your doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not a doctor. So listen to your doctor first. But look in the comments, because we learn from each other. And that's why I have my show. You'll see people saying that their gut issues melted away. Even their cancer is put at bay. Sometimes it's not detectable on scans. And if you hit subscribe right now and then hit the little bell, you'll be alerted when I have more interviews. But I'd like to tell you a few interviews that I have. I have Pablo, who was given the death sentence of glioblastoma multiforme, GBM. But he's thriving. He's doing great. He now has 2 children, which he told he would never have, and he does. I have Guy Tenenbaum, who saved his own life also from cancer, given, I think, 2 or 3 months to live. Dr. Dannenberg also was given just a few months to live. And all these people are thriving and saving their life using food. So I feel like there's two paths to life when you're struggling. It's either genetic and you can say it's my genes. There's nothing I can do. I got to take this shot. I got to take this pill because that's what my doctor gave me, shots and pills. And that's how I'm going to get over my genetic condition. Or we can look at foods and learn from each other, because there's so many doctors out there now reversing, orthopedic surgeons, cardiologists, gastroenterologists, and they're changing foods. They're not recommending the grains, smoothies, fruits and vegetables anymore. They're saying, you know, if you're doing well, eat those. But for some of us, we have to eat almost exclusively meat. Now I'm not exclusively meat. I do the SAD diet, the standard American diet. When I want to eat something, I eat it. But for the most part, I've increased my meat. I've increased my eggs. I've increased my fats. I've used butter. You know, we used to think that butter was the enemy. So you got to use margarine. You got to use seed oils, which they market it as vegetable oils, which we now know it's seeds and it's highly processed. And for a lot of us, it causes mental health and gut issues. And it's in almost every restaurant. Before they cook your vegan or meat meal, ask them, what oil did you use for those fries, for that burger, for that veggie burger? And usually they're using soy, corn, canola, cottonseed, grapeseed, and all these seeds, look into them. It turns out they're probably not as healthy as you thought, and actually might be detrimental to your gut and your mind. And finally, what I want to let you know is when we think we're getting vitamins, minerals, and proteins from plants, it turns out if you listen to biochemists and nutrition, a lot of that, even if that product says you're going to get 4% of 4 grams of protein, most likely you're going to get under 1, because most of the nutrients are packed into the leaves, stems, and roots, and that's fiber, and it's going to come right out into the bathroom. So it's going to get wasted. So I recommend a more meat-based diet if you want to be more like me and you're healing your mental health and gut issues. And another thing a lot of these people recommend is in the bathroom. So they're recommending this way of eating because you're going to notice that you almost do not need toilet paper. You're not going to have gas and all of these issues. You're not going to be doubled over.
I'd like to present to you the best trial that I could find. This was a case-controlled study. So in this study, 63 patients who presented with constipation were recruited, and high and low fibre diets were compared in these patients. And this also included a zero fibre diet that required the complete cessation of all vegetables, cereals, fruits, wholemeal breads, and rice. So this graph here represents the percentage of study participants before the study suffering from each of the symptoms listed on the right side. So you can see, before the study started, all of them had constipation and strain opening their bowels, and a number also experienced bloating, bleeding, and pain. And when the study participants, those who went on a high fibre diet, we can see that the proportion suffering symptoms actually increased, especially bloating. So then there was a reduced fibre arm. And what you can see here is that those on the reduced fibre diet actually demonstrated a modest reduction in symptoms. So the question is, what happened to those, the majority of those in the study, who had zero fibre in their diet? This is not a mistake. I didn't just forget to put something in the slide there. Now, not one patient on the zero fibre diet had any symptoms. That's quite astonishing, really. And these findings were highly statistically significant, highly. They weren't due to random chance. Now, just out of interest, every single person in the low zero fibre group ended up having 1 bowel action per day, every day. How did this compare to those in the high fibre group? 1 bowel action on average every 6.83 days. Still think that fibre is good for constipation?
And I teach my children that. I say, hey, if you want to go vegan or plant-based or more vegetarian because your friends are talking about it, then take a look at yourself. If your skin is fine, if your gut is fine, if you're doing fine in the bathroom and you're not having anxiety or depression, then go with vegan and plant-based. But if you're struggling or your family's struggling, you have to look at the foods, because you are not a genetic defect. I'm not a genetic defect. Your mental health issues your mental health issues, your gut issues don't have to be there. And when I used to be more on social media, I used to say, one of my favorite quotes to say is that life is like a boxing ring. You have to put on your gloves and get into the boxing ring. But from time to time, you have to step out, go on vacation, hang out with friends. And the reason I say that is I know you have challenges. And again, I'd love to hear it in the comments. You have challenges and they're just never ending. It could be with a brother or sister. It could be your neighbor. It could be your parents. It could be friends. It could be your boss or someone you work with. Or financial. We all have challenges, but we don't have to suffer. So that's why I hope you'll join me on this journey. I hope you'll recommend books to me, studies, or your interview to be on my show and tell me how you saved your own life or someone that you love or family and friends. Please refer them to me. I want to share their stories. That's why I'm here. And that's why I call my show Growth Factor, because there are many factors to growing. And the biggest factor is sharing your story so we can all learn together, because we're in this together. And I hope that I can help you and that my friends can help you that I've interviewed. So if you click below, subscribe, look at my videos. Another way to do it is click above. Once you hit the show title called Growth Factor, then above it says videos and also says about, it says community. There's a lot above to explore. Take a look at all my videos. And I did start my show in a more spiritual manner because I have a lot of friends that have a really wild spiritual story. And I was using that at first to help me with my own anxiety and helping other people with their anxiety, depression. Now it's moved much more into nutrition. And I call it Meat for Mental Health, because it seems that the red meats, the ruminant meats that have the 4 stomachs, they're using the vegan grasses and plants and they're absorbing it. And we don't have the gut of a gorilla, a cow, a sheep, goat, or deer. We have a different small intestine and large intestine, different size. So it seems to be that we really can't handle the plants like we thought we could. So I recommend looking at some podcasts from biochemists, and I can recommend some to you. I'm going to have them on my show. They teach us that fat is not the culprit. As a matter of fact, fatty acids are what feed your heart, and cholesterol is what comes to rescue. So the pharmaceutical industry told you got to take this pill, you got to increase your HDL and lower your LDL and struggle with your triglycerides. Well, it just might be that you can use foods, especially fats, to help yourself, that it's not the cholesterol and the fat that's clogging your arteries. Rather, it's the alcohol, it's the rices, grains, legumes, smoothies, seeds, and beans. I'm not saying not to eat that. I'm just saying, let's not look at meat anymore as the culprit. Meat is a superfood. It's a healing food, and it helped heal me. And if you're willing to go on that path, I hope it heals you as well. Thank you for being here. Please share my show, and I'm glad to meet you. And please comment and tell us your story. Thanks for being here to Growth Factor and with me, Amalia.